Hi, everyone. This is Steve Delisano. Welcome to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know. I'm thrilled to be joined by Helen Hill, the president and COO of Explore Charleston. Helen, thanks for being here today.
It is such an honor to be here, Steve. Thank you.
We're so excited to learn more about you, your background, and of course, more about Charleston, one of the cities I've always wanted to go to, just to kick that off.
And if
By
you
the end of this
haven't been,
interview-
you got to be with
All
me
right.
in Charleston.
I love that. So let's kick it off. Let's learn more about you. I know that you're a Charleston native and you dedicated your career to really promoting the city that you call home, which I love. So tell us about your career story. What inspired you to have that passion for tourism and have that passion evolve over the last few decades?
Well, I'm so blessed to get to sell every day the place that I grew up and the place that I've seen evolve over a long period of time. So, and being in tourism was really not the plan. I went off to Clemson University to be a banker like my dad. And it got to that second level accounting, that 8 o'clock class in the morning, and I decided maybe finance was not for me. And the only thing at Clemson I could change my major to and still graduate in the prescribed by the parents 4 years was tourism. So that's how it happened.
Wow. While you were at Clemson, did you have any experiences or maybe mentors that had a really big impact on your career?
Absolutely. I was very fortunate to have that. I went to an all-girls school in Charleston. So when I got to Clemson University, obviously big school, big co-ed school, we were going to school with boys. And I realized that my friends would tell me from my sorority and everything that you are so brave. And I'm like, what do you mean? And like, well, you'll just do anything. I realized that I didn't know that the girls weren't supposed to be in charge because they'd always been in charge. I'd been at a girls' school. We'd always been in charge. So I was involved in a lot of extracurricular activities, and I think that really helped frame the future for me.
I love that. Speaking of Charleston, I know that you probably have witnessed firsthand the transformation over the last few years, becoming one of America's top premier destinations.
Thank you for saying that, Steve.
Of course. Everyone I talk to goes to Charleston. What were some of the moments that stood out as defining milestones throughout your professional career?
Well, the main reason I actually have my job was because of something hard, and it was Hurricane Hugo. And, you know, we have a lot of storms in the Southeast, but the reality is in our Charleston's 300-year history, we really only had 5 big hurricanes, but Hugo was one of them. Wow. And I was the acting director of Explore Charleston. And 2 weeks before the storm, I'd been doing the job long enough because my boss had left to be the state tourism director for North Carolina. They were like, well, she's been doing it, so we're going to keep her. And I was only 26.
Love that.
And so I was very fortunate to get there. But during Hurricane Hugo, we laughed and say, it's sort of like all of us during COVID. You grew in dog years because you really learned how to improvise and really how to be the best you could be facing challenging times. As much as we hate it, the reality is you just don't grow except through hard. And I laugh and tell our younger staff that all the best stories come from the hard stuff. And when you have a little perspective on them a little longer, it looks better.
Yeah, those are the stuff you never forget.
Yep.
So I know that Explore Charleston is very unique in a sense that your advertising, your marketing, your creative work is all produced in-house. How has that approach really strengthened the brand and allowed you to stay authentic in a very highly competitive industry?
Well, I wish that I could say we had some grand plan. We didn't. And it was really born out of we had very limited resources. And we said, how can we do it? And we knew that if we did the work ourselves, that we could buy a little bit more, right? So that's how it started. And we really believe, if you think about my creative team, is that, you know, trends are trends, but they don't always fit your destination or your community. And we really feel like you have to pull it out of your soul to really promote the place. And so that when you come to Charleston, we know how we want you to feel when you're there. And, you know, Charleston's history is not all fabulous, right? And I laugh and tell everyone that everybody wishes for a more perfect past, and Charleston's no different. But the reality is we have been rewarded for showing who Charleston really is, not who we wish it was as a destination.
I love that. Now, I know you work alongside more than 900 business partners and multiple local governments. What leadership principles have helped you successfully unite all these different stakeholders around a clear vision of what Charleston should be?
Well, we're very unique in terms of representing that many governments. I laugh with my counterparts. I don't know of anybody who has that many mayors and county council
Crazy.
chairmen. But the benefit is they have believed in the vision that it's the brand of Charleston that matters. And it also gives us some diversity because in Charleston, we have 5 amazing beaches in addition to the historic city. So we laugh a lot that that those things that visitors are looking for, we have enough variety to meet their needs. But most importantly, I think that staying authentic to what the community is good at and acknowledging the things that we're not. And that's worked out okay for us.
I love it. Tourism itself, right? It's continuing to evolve and to change, especially with all different traveler expectations and technologies. How has Explore Charleston really embraced that innovation and preserved at the same time the authenticity that we just spoke about?
Well, Charleston was the first community to have a tourism management plan back in 1974, believe it or not. And we've updated that plan every 10 years. So we've had a very intentional process to look at what is the experience you want visitors to have. But most importantly, we really believe at our core, if it's a great place to live, it'll be a great place to visit. And
Great philosophy.
well, it's worked for us. And
Yeah.
it sounds kind of trite, but it's
love
always
it.
worked for us. And that part of making sure that the people that provide the attraction, so the people that live in those beautiful historic houses. I grew up in one that was built in 1780. We take care of them too, because when you're walking down the street, you see somebody pulling out their trash can. I mean, it's a real living, breathing community. But we've never, we've always been able to say that we're really excited about preserving the past, but at the same time, we're really interested in embracing the future. And it's those two things together. If you think about the over-tourism movement, it's looking at those two things together that's the magic. And, how do you have innovative parking, right? How do you have innovative transportation? So those are the things that we spend a lot of time thinking and talking about.
I love that. Well, Charleston continues to receive both national and international recognition while you're still having exciting developments. Like I know the Four Seasons Charleston is opening in 2027. What is your long-term vision for Charleston? What would you love to see happen in the next decade?
Well, it's funny that you ask it that way because a lot of people who come to Charleston now kind of come to a more finished product, that we've been working on for a long time, right? And it's so much fun for me to think about where we'll be. And we've gotten some really beautiful, innovative properties. And you mentioned the new Four Seasons. We just opened the new Cooper Hotel, which is our first, believe it or not, waterfront hotel in the historic district.
Wow.
And we've been able to build on all of those things. It's like, if you think about the sanctuary at Kiowa Island and that's the place we stand on the world stage. That's where we had the Ryder Cup. That's where you have the PGA Championship. So I think it's the mix of those. But in terms of where I'm excited about the future is I think that we have been rewarded for being who we were, and people have embraced that. And I laugh and say that the real story of how things happened is always better than anything you can make up. And if you can bring that together with the rich history that we have, like with agriculture and with food, it's awesome. And it makes for exciting.
That's probably such a great feeling.
It is.
That is awesome. Well, I know that you operate both through a strong partnership from both the public and private investment side. How has that collaborative model been successful for you? And how can other tourism boards learn from that?
Well, I would say that the big idea that we had back in 2010 was to get involved in the air service development business, because the reality is to bring in new travelers. And we love the repeat visitors. I laugh and say the people from Charlotte, we love them, right? But they just don't do as much as the people that come from California or New York. And so we've really spent a lot of time since 2010 working on air service. I'm actually the chairman of our airport. And it's been interesting that we pretended like we were an island community, because they always did it the best, right? They created an inbound market. So the wonderful thing that's happened at our airport, we've gone from about 3.1 million flyers to over 6 million flyers.
Wow.
In a very short amount of time. And that's good for Charleston, because that many people didn't bring a car, but also many times a new visitor. And the other part is the new carriers that we have. We started with Southwest. We got JetBlue. Most recently, we really have a wonderful partnership with Breeze Airways. Have y'all heard of Breeze?
That's great. We have not.
It's really cool.
I have not, at least.
You will hear. So David Nealman, who started JetBlue, started Breeze. So you'd love them. But they do point-to-point flying. But it's created new markets for us. And so that has been a real key to the success we've had in the last 10 years, particularly the last 5.
Very cool. That's so important. You're right, because whenever you look up destinations, you want to see, like, is it convenient to fly into it? Is there a lot of flights in and out of it? So that's something.
Well, you just don't want to spend your time, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to spend your time in the airport. You want to
100%. You want to get the most
there.
out of your days there.
Right.
I'm a New Yorker, so I'd be that same way, trying to get as much in as possible as I'm there.
Exactly.
So I know leading tourism boards, you probably have gone through a lot of different periods of rapid growth, and we also talked about unexpected challenges along the way.
Right.
What has been some of the most difficult leadership challenges you faced, and what did those teach you along the way?
For us, it's been how do you maintain that sense of hospitality? One of the reasons you mentioned some of the awards we've led, and if you dig into the numbers, we do well with accommodations and restaurants and stuff like that, but we're not New York, right? And really what has always given us an edge is what they would call hospitality. But when you dig into it, it's not just that we have really friendly people.
Sure.
It's that they also serve, right? That they actually can do what you need them to do. And so we decided, since we don't have a lot of brands, we're going to have our first one, 4 Seasons. We didn't have any training, right? So our organization does over 50 hospitality training classes, so that if you're the person who is in the garage, if you're the person who's at the front desk, if you're the person who's on the tour, we train you, right? And it's really allows people, particularly those people from the South that are already friendly anyway. I say it's about competent service, because that's what the traveler's looking for.
Responsible tourism has become an increasingly important conversation. What do you believe are the biggest challenge destinations like Charleston will face while maintaining that growth that we talked about?
I think as we look forward, it's going to be maintaining the balance. And you've seen in Europe those communities that have gotten out of balance. For example, we have just ended cruise ships in Charleston. So for a long time, we had cruise ship passengers. And the way, y'all know how cruise ships work. A lot of times they'll come in and they come in for the day, and they bring a lot of people at a really time. Charleston's not set up for that because of the size. So making some very intentional decisions to make sure that you manage populations of people. Yep. And then on the flip side, we've had so many good things. Like we just created the East Coast Festival so Aspen has the Food and Wine Classic. Now they have the Food and Wine Classic in Charleston. What an amazing event for us, because not huge, but celebrating the great agriculture, the great fisheries, and really the great food. And it's perfect, right, for Charleston. Not big, but very intentionally planned.
I love that. Helen, you've had a very impressive career. And I love hearing about all the successes and some of the learnings along the way. If someone was tuning in, especially young professionals or a young woman that wanted to get into the travel tourism career or just business in general, what advice would you give yourself all those years ago when you first got started?
Well, you might laugh at this because there's a couple of them, and I tell our young staff this a lot. Well, the first one will not surprise you, is that to be curious and be a good listener. You learn so much by being curious, and that's really when I go to hire somebody, I'm looking for that characteristic. It's so important. The next thing is to be brave and to be sure that you're working in a place that it's okay to fail. And we talk about, y'all have heard that line about falling forward. The great thing is we really celebrate that because it gets you one step closer to where you want to be. And we really live it. And a lot of people talk about it, but you actually have to be able to walk it. And I think that as you're evaluating where you may want to go to work, is choose a place that it is okay to do that. And the last two things is be in a place where it's okay to be whoever you are. I mean, in the South, we have some characters, right? And we celebrate those people, right? It's okay to be a little bit different, right? Because we share the same core that service is in our heart. And we're going to show you every day that we care about you as an individual and when we care about you as a team. We have a thing called Us Members Clients. And when you're evaluating a decision, how does it affect us as a team? How does it affect our membership? How does it affect our future visitors? And you can't make a mistake. If you go down that path, choosing those 3 things to look at, you can't make a mistake. But the last one, and this is one I've found out very recently, and it's because I've gotten older now, is when I was young, because I got my job very young, I ended up with a lot of my friends were men that were in their 50s. And we would have these great meetings, and they would think that the ideas were great and embrace them. And I laughed and said all my friends were men over 50, right? But as you work forward, we would go to the cocktail party that night, and I'd be with them in a social situation. And I would just feel like not connected. I'm like, well, we were just together in the boardroom, and I felt so connected. And, well, maybe it's because their spouse is here or something. Well, now that I've gotten older, I found out they couldn't hear me. And I think young women today, so many young women in the marketplace forget there's a lot of, as people get older, particularly men, there are a lot of them that can't hear. And it's not that they're not interested in you. They don't want to admit they can't hear you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of smiling and nodding.
Of course. Yeah.
And so,
especially at a loud bar, you're like.
But we laugh about that
Yeah.
now. But it's a truism. And I think you, as a young female executive, sometimes you might take it as a hit. But the reality is they just can't hear you. Not funny.
It's great advice. Love it. I know we talked about this a little bit. Obviously, the expansion of the 4 seasons. But what's next? What else should people expect from Charleston?
Well, we are so excited about the development of Union Pier. I mentioned that we're no longer going to have cruise ships, but we have this amazing piece of property that the Port of Charleston that was on, and they've now moved up the river further to develop from scratch. And so if you think about a historic community, 1670, that has the opportunity to reimagine this piece of property. And so, we're thinking about the arts, and, we're thinking about accommodations, and we're
Sure.
thinking about affordable housing to make sure, housing's a big issue everywhere. How do we make sure the people that work in that industry have a place to live that's close to work? And how great would it be if they could walk, right? So the opportunity for this, it is going to make Charleston's next 20 years our most exciting.
I love that. Well, Helen, we covered a lot. But if there is one thing you want our listeners to know about the mission of Explore Charleston, what would that be?
I think for us, it would be the opportunity to come visit our community and add to it. We have found as Charleston has grown, we've been so fortunate that people have come in with new ideas and new thoughts, and how we embrace that and marry that with what has already made us great. And I think that that's the magic, because a lot of times people are like, no, we don't want any more, right? And we think just the opposite of that is it is such an opportunity to learn and grow. Like Charleston, South Carolina, when I started, we didn't have there was no Boeing, there was no Volvo, there was no Mercedes. And the fact that those industries are there with us,
Yeah.
meshed into our historic culture, it's amazing.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sold. I have to plan my trip. But if someone else is tuning in that wants to learn more, what should they do?
They should go to our website at explorecharleston.com, and we would be honored to have them visit our community.
Well, I was honored to have you come visit us and be on the podcast. It was so inspiring to learn more about you personally. You could tell that you love what you do, and
I
you
really
love
do.
the city that you represent. And I think that is going to go through to all of our listeners that are tuning in. So thank you so much for being here today, Helen.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know.